All right, so welcome to a late and expedited but episode of the New Era Challenge podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Brett Parnell,
And I'm TT Fernandez.
and we do apologize about missing out on last week. We had some technical issues that have been resolved, but have been a bit of a learning curve for both of us coming through really knowing nothing about technology on this side. But we thought we would just jump on today before the episode and put out an expedited episode, quickly go over last week because how could two huge Michele Fitzgerald fans miss out on such a great episode for her last week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was definitely important that we film this, even though it's a little bit late, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get started, TT. What's your thoughts on, I guess, the opening scene? And I guess right away we get a big scene for both Era 3 and Era 4 with Tori throwing Devin a surprise birthday after the elimination.
Yeah, I right after the elimination, we see like a little bit about Corey being annoyed with Era 4 for selecting him, but then also Nehemiah kind of being mad at Rachel for selecting him, and Rachel just kind of trying to beat around the bush about why she chose him. But then we cut right into the Devin's birthday party, which I really enjoyed watching. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I mean, shout out to everybody here, but notably Ryan, Derek, and Karamuria. This was just hilarious
Mm-hmm.
for both Ryan and Derek performing together, but also for Kara. Um, the two of them certainly made it memorable. I love the fact that Tori did this for her ride or die when no one was expecting it, and it turned out to be at least what seems like the party of the season. I also think here is where in the season we start to go from kind of showmance to actual relationship for Michele and Devin, and notably when we see like Michele talking to Tori about bringing Devin to New Jersey after the season. Michele and Tori are both New Jersey girls themselves. So I really love this kind of merge between seeing Michele and Devin now coming closer, seeing Michele coming more and more into the Vacation Alliance as every episode goes on. What are your thoughts?
I want to talk about first the strippers. We see Cherry and I forgot the name that the other one had, but we see them, they're really having a good time. And like you said, I really appreciate Tori like still throwing a party for Devin, because I think I heard somewhere on like a podcast or something that everybody was like super exhausted from the challenge. Nobody wanted to do anything, and Devin was probably just expecting like, I'm not gonna have a birthday party, it's fine. But we see Tori was like, nope, we have to celebrate him, and I just really appreciated her bringing everybody together to celebrate,
Yeah,
because I mean, if you're tired and you just want to shower and go to bed, like I get you're not in a big party mood, but I appreciate how the whole cast kind of came together, and we even see like Bananas smashing the cake in Devin's face and just little things like that that
that's a great point too. That like we do see that it's not just this Tori, Michele, Olivia kind of like his allies in the game, but like
Mhm.
Bananas got really into it, Loyal got really into it, and really this was the entire house doing something nice for Devin at the time.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed seeing that, and I loved the Cara roasts that we saw. I heard that she roasted everybody, but they did not include that footage. But my favorite one was when she said that, or she said, thank you to the ventilators for letting, or thank you to whoever for letting Darrell and Derek get off the ventilators. And apparently she had some pretty good roasts for people, which I'm pretty sad that we missed out on.
They need to bring back the shit they should have shown or put this on YouTube or something that could just be
Mm-hmm.
like a half an hour video. Kara would get millions of views.
Exactly. I don't know why they don't bring that back, because I feel like everybody would watch the shit they should have shown if they still had that episode.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
like you said with Devin and Michele, Michele says something about like her and Devin are like almost Facebook official now. They're
Yeah.
really in a relationship. It's not a showmance, it's not a hookup for the season. And I don't know, it made me very happy to see that they were both very serious about it. We did see Devin during his party kind of talk about how he doesn't just care about wanting to win now, and the risk of playing a super strategic game is less than the reward of having Michele or something along those
Yeah.
lines, that he would rather not play a super strategic game and he would still be happy with the outcome just because he is having so much fun with Michele.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I'm loving seeing all of the content on social media and how they're still going really strong right now. And
Mm-hmm.
will be interesting to see how this relationship potentially plays out in future seasons too. As you could, I know I've said this on previous episodes, but see somebody like Michele step in and say she doesn't come back after 38 or 40, depending on who it is, maybe replace somebody in that alliance like a Nani or an Anissa.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if they're all in the alliance, there's always going to be somebody that gets eliminated,
Yeah,
which I guess on Ride or Dies, it wasn't because we saw Fessy went before. But I mean, they stayed pretty strong on Ride or Dies. But I think now, if you think about like this season, Anissa's already gone, you
yeah,
know? So, and Nani's not here. So I feel like even if all of the OG vacationers are there, they're still like maybe they're not going to protect Michele as much as they would protect a Tori or a Casey or like those three girls, but we are going to see that she's going to be a higher priority than somebody who's not in there just because she is with Devin.
yeah. That being said, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, say, on a 41 with Michele and Devin being together, if maybe she does jump somebody like a Casey in that alliance who's off on her own, assuming Nani isn't going to come back onto the show. And also, as we've said, everybody I think in the cast even kind of knows the fans' opinions on Casey on TV compared to, say, Michele has mixed opinions, but even people who don't like her can't stop talking about her because she's an amazing reality show contestant.
Absolutely. Like, I think she brings pretty much anything that we would want. And I know there's a lot of chatter about the CBS kids versus the MTV kids or whatever. And I don't even think that that's necessarily relevant
Yeah,
because, like, people are saying if you were on Road Rules or Real World, you're kind of a different breed of entertainment, and all the CVS kids are not. And I'm not saying that maybe Casey wouldn't be somebody that would go on a Real World season, but
yeah,
if Michele would have, if there was a Real World and if she would have wanted to do something like that, I'm pretty sure she would, like, she fits the mold
exactly.
of a reality character. And I
And
don't think,
I'm not sure if there's any more there might be on Big Brother, but um, look at, say, even within the CBS world, somebody like Poverty was a high ranking applicant on the real world who just barely didn't get on and then ended up
I
being
think she
part of
declined it.
CBS. Oh,
She
really?
declined, yeah, she declined. It was Real World Paris. It was
Paris,
CT
yeah,
season because she got on Survivor. So I
exactly.
think it's
Interesting.
interesting to note that just because you weren't casted on the Real World, and I know like Survivor and all those, they do have very strict casting opportunities. Like I
Yeah,
know a lot of people apply and they don't get ever even a call back.
yeah.
So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to talk
I
about
mean,
that
I've applied
because
4 times.
see, you could not pay me to apply. But I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that because I feel like I've seen so many people talk about the CVS kids this and CVS kids that when it's like it's not it's not necessarily that. I think that that could be true for some people, but it's not all the CVS kids aren't entertaining and reality television worthy as the MTV kids because
Yeah,
obviously Michele, I would say she makes better TV than a lot of the real world and
agreed.
road rules people.
All right, so moving on into the daily. Um, this is interesting because we right away see that Darrell is a target this week, and the challenge involves jumping off the highest building in Vietnam. Yay!
Yeah, I think the challenge was called Leap of Faith,
Yeah,
and for era one, everybody had to jump just because they only had four people, but the other eras, TJ, he picked names out of a bag and he basically had the power of deciding who is going to be jumping off that building. So we saw that four people were going to jump. They had to each grab one flag unless it was the bonus flag, then you could grab two. But if you grabbed more than one or if you missed or something, then you get a penalty.
yeah,
And if you grab the bonus flag, they got 3 minutes taken off their time.
yeah. This was a fun challenge. I like the fact that we had that randomness. Um, because it really did play into like you don't know whether your biggest or smallest people are going to be jumping off because obviously a big guy like the size of Darrell or Bananas is going to be much harder to bring back to the platform than most of the cast on this show. Um, I also just like the fact that you didn't necessarily get to pick who was doing puzzles either at the end. So like you clearly noticed the reaction in amongst not just Aerofoil, but the entire cast when it's like Michele Fitzgerald gets to do a puzzle today.
Yeah, I really
And
love that
and
moment.
I love that too. And at that point you should be thinking that Aerofoil has this until we see all seen the memes of Josh just hanging over one of the biggest cities in Asia for half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I was not expecting that performance from Era 4 just
Yeah,
because we have seen them work together so well. And like, I'm, if I'm, I don't know, I guess if they got to, if Era 4 would have gotten the chance to pick who was going to do what, I can assure you for sure Michele was going to be on the puzzle.
yeah,
And maybe they would have put Kylan to pull, but I feel like since Michele and Kylan are just kind of the puzzle masters, they would have put like if they got to pick, they probably would have selected the same people to do what they did.
probably. I think the only thing they might have done is with it being such a small puzzle, you could have easily put Michele with some big guy there and just let Michele do it
Yeah,
in order to not have to lift 300 pounds.
I guess that is true, but I don't think I think Era 4 was they didn't think that pulling the people up was going to be this challenging
True.
and I they were the ones that had to go first, so they got like they didn't get to watch how other people are doing things, which I think
I think
definitely did
that's
not
a
help
great
them.
point. That the technique to how you get your contestant back up to the top of the building seemed to be completely off on Era 4, where they were all bending down and lifting or trying to pull, as opposed to getting those ropes over your shoulders and just running. And
Absolutely.
that really inhibited them, whereas the other eras got to see them fail and was like, that technique is not working. Let's try another tactic until we see the next era, I believe was era 2, get it correct and manage to lift Bananas up with relative ease.
Yeah, and I think that in hindsight, if you think about it, like your legs are stronger than your arms. So using like instead of having your legs in like a squat position and like using only basically all arm strength, maybe a little bit of glute strength to pull them, you're using your quads. You're using
Yeah,
your whole body when you're like putting it over your shoulder and running. And obviously that is what happens when you go first in a challenge. Like you don't have a strategy to base things off of and you don't have anybody to compare your performance to, but that is part of the game. And um, I'm not like I feel like moving on with Era 4, I don't think that this loss is going to be something that puts them in a bad position just
agree.
because they have done so well in dailies.
Yeah, and we'll get to that too, but even being in last place, it's not like anything really happens to them at the end of the episode that inhibits them going forward.
Absolutely. And I do want to touch on like two people's or a few performances from the other era, just so we're not only talking about Era 4.
Yeah,
We see that Bananas is not very happy with Ryan, and this is just kind of building up to something later on. But he's basically saying Ryan did not do anything, and he, which I watched a clip of just Ryan's performance later on that somebody clipped, and he was like, I mean, I could see he didn't help on the puzzle, which I mean, if you're not good at puzzles, it's fine. But Bananas is not very happy with his performance because he doesn't think that he's a worthy competitor.
yeah,
And I don't even think it's just that, but I think it's also that Ryan is so well connected with pretty much every other era that
exactly.
he doesn't, even if he doesn't win the daily, he's probably not going to get selected as a target by the people that go into elimination.
That's right.
And then another thing that made me pretty happy was when we see Darrell conquering his fear of heights. We know that Darrell has always struggled with heights, and I think even Naya said this, like if it were up to me, if it was just me, I would just not do it and go into elimination. But he knows that he has Rachel that he also has to worry about. So I don't know. I think it showed a lot of growth from him. Not that he not like personal growth, but just being able to conquer his fears and also like set a good example for his kids back home, saying if you're scared of something, you need to do it and don't let your fear stop you from doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great to see. And I'm just going to throw this out there because it was my reaction when I watched the show. I love that Darrell's setting this example for his family, but I also would be a bit, at least in my view, dishonest to admit that the prize on Battle of the Eras is about 10 times bigger than it is on All Stars. So that might have something to do with it too.
Yeah, but I also think like if you think about it, the during the challenge on All Stars, he was also going against people that were kind of his oops. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
He was going against people that were like his age and his, you know.
Yeah.
So I think even though the prize is a lot bigger, you can't just bet fully on the fact that like they're still in teams, you
Oh,
know. There's
100%.
still a lot of people left. So I don't know.
All right. So we see in this case, um, Era 3 wins the challenge, and then Era 4, as we kind of already pretty much mentioned, loses, which makes an interesting scenario here because at least the main storyline I've picked up at this point of the season over 7 weeks is that Era 3 will always protect Era 4 and Era 4 will always protect Era 3. Now they can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that in like and not to well, I guess we'll talk about deliberation after we talk about the club, but
Yeah.
we kind of see that era era 3 cannot, like you said, they can't even protect era 4 because they're going in automatically. So this is where we kind of see where they really lie in terms of who they have before, like is their number 3 gonna be era 2 or is it gonna be era 1? And we see that um in the club, or I guess we see that Tina is kind of she already knows that she's going in. And it's not confirmed for her, but I think she knows that when she was talking to Michele, basically saying that or she tells Michele that she's not she's not going to let her wipe the floor with her. Or Michele tells sorry, I'm all over the place. Michele tells Tina that she's not going to let her wipe the floor with her if they see each other in elimination and
Yeah.
Tina kind of says if I have to take you out, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And this is where we see why Michele is on the challenge, which this moment was very, very like important to me. And I
Hmm.
really appreciated seeing this because you can tell that she really wants to be there. It's not like a quick, I'm gonna get my guarantee and go home. Like she is fighting to be in the game and she's fighting to win.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated seeing the story about how much her brother enjoys watching her on the show and everything that happened with his accident.
Yeah. I love this moment as well. Um, at one of the parties that Bryce and Wendell put on in New York City a few years ago, I met Michelle's mom and her brother at that.
Mhm.
So to see Joe there, who I've talked to, and I know from talking to him how much he loved at the time seeing her on When It Was at War, and now on the challenge is, and all of their family is so close. I know I've mentioned that I've met Michele and met her sister Kim many times before. So I love seeing this as well. Such an important moment for her, but also for her whole family. And I love that MTV brought that relationship with Michele and Joe into the challenge the same way we see that relationship with Michele and Kim on Survivor 40.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on one thing about some of the comments that I've been seeing on Facebook and Instagram with people being very, very negative towards Michele. And especially after seeing this episode where she talks about why she's there and why it's so important to her.
Yeah.
I think it's very insensitive for people to be commenting things like, why is Michele here? Or what,
Yeah,
things like that. And I think even if you aren't a super fan of a person or a character that is portrayed in a show, it's still important to be respectful and there's no need to send so much hate to somebody after they had a very vulnerable moment about
absolutely.
their life.
Yeah, no question. Can't agree more there. And at least that's the way I look at it is there's certain people on the show, Michele being one of them, that I'm a huge fan of. Those other people on the show, I know I've mentioned the name Amanda before, that I'm just like, why is she back? But even someone like Amanda, I can still respect that she's out there to play her game and try her best and be entertaining, even if it's not maybe a casting choice that I would make.
Absolutely. And like we've mentioned before, there's people that I'm a huge fan of. I'm not the biggest fan of. Amanda comes to mind. Fessie's not my favorite. But I'm not going on the challenge Instagram and commenting nasty things about them. I'm not sending them, I'm not tweeting at them, and I'm not saying horrible things about them because just because that's my thoughts on the show, I'm not going to personally seek out and attack that person. And I think that this fan base can be very exhausting sometimes because I understand that not everybody is gonna like a character, but there's certain things that you should not say about them or to them specifically or in a platform like the comments of a new challenge post
Yeah,
that that's gonna hurt somebody, and like these are real people, and I think anybody who's listening to this, just please be mindful of that and just try your best to not like go out of your way to hurt somebody's feelings.
absolutely. So moving on to the deliberation, where did you want to go there first? Because I know you brought up that you wanted to
Yeah,
talk about
sorry,
it
we
after
kind
the
of skipped
scene.
around because we had the club before the deliberation,
Yeah,
I think, and usually it's the other way around, but we see that Darrell is just kind of saying, "We're broken. We finally did not lose. We did not come in last place. Can we please get a break?"
yeah. And then at the same time, we see Jordan, who I think makes equally as good of a counterpoint. Darrell makes a great point there from the perspective of Era One.
Mhm.
Jordan makes a great point too of this is all so easy. We can just finish your entire era right off.
Yeah, and I think Naya said that too at the club, like, it just makes the most sense to just finish you guys off,
Yeah,
and, I mean, I don't know, I think I I get it because if you think about it, they are the lowest hanging fruit on the tree. You're not really gonna piss off a lot of people if you send them in,
that's
and
it.
they also just don't hold much agency in the game because if you're constantly losing, like coming in last place, and then this is like the first time you don't come into last place, and then you go like politicking is not gonna work if you aren't good because
Exactly.
there's not much that you can offer.
And when I look at the other teams too, it's like we know era one's just getting sent in over and over again. Do I want, if I'm, no matter which era I'm on, do I want to possibly make Laurel and Bananas angry at me or Jordan angry at you? Or we even after 39, we have to put like Olivia in that category. We've seen that she can play a very ruthless game as it gets to the end and make big moves. So they're just the easiest team to throw in.
Yeah, and I think that if Era 2 would have won, they probably would have thrown in, um, Era 3 because it
Yeah,
was Corey or no, who were it was Jordan
Jordan.
and Naya.
Yeah,
So I feel like they probably would have thrown or actually it depends on who.
it would depend.
No. No, because Laurel would not have thrown in Jordan.
True.
We've seen that. So I think either way, Era 1 would have gone in
Yeah,
with how things are standing right now. And I don't know. I think that they don't have any agency. They don't have anything to offer up just because they're not doing well in the dailies.
yeah, absolutely. Though if we did see, let's say Loyal though did decide to make a move in that sort of situation, Jordan against Kylan, that would have been one wild elimination.
Especially one like this. I think would have to give it to Kylan just because of the math portion.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's different when like it would make more sense. It wouldn't make that much sense for Laurel to make a move against Jordan just because she is like Jordan is somebody that you would want to go because if you're competing for the females and for the males, like if there's a partner portion in the final, you Jordan is somebody that you would want to have as a partner.
yeah,
So I don't know.
exactly.
I feel like it's different when it's like an individual game, like 39. It's you know that it's every man for themselves, but I think that it wouldn't make that much sense for Laurel to make a move against Jordan just because Jordan is protecting her and he's not like having him still in the game is not going to hurt her game personally. But I do want to talk about how Tina says that she talks about her why in this episode and how her mom is from Vietnam and how her mom escaped this during the war and it's
Yeah.
like very sentimental for her to come back to Vietnam and to be be back in a country that represents her heritage
Yeah.
and she's basically saying that she is willing to fight like hell for this.
Yeah, I love seeing that as well. Um, Especially seeing it must have been a very emotional moment for someone like Tina to actually get those plane tickets and realize where her season is going to be held and that family connection she has. It brought me back to Michelle's season of Survivor when Ty talks about being from that area. He was Vietnamese as well, but filmed in Cambodia, but Koh Rong to Vietnam is not very far away.
Mm-hmm.
And just actually reconnecting with that place well on American TV. And I also really like this connection that we saw because we've already got a couple of similar confessionals from Bananas and from Ryan where the relatives went to Vietnam during the war in the armed forces, and Tina's family was able to escape the North Vietnamese and end up in the United States as a result of all the people who fought alongside of with Ryan and Bananas' relatives at the time.
Yeah, and I have so much respect for anybody who fought, like all the veterans who fought in that war. And I think it's more than just the game for them. Like Bananas, we see he's wearing his dad's tags from the war. So it's almost like they're in a place that not that many years ago had so much like violence and war that was going on. So it's like they kind of want to come in. It's almost like they want to or they want to honor the people that served and that people that helped them out in that situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But just moving on a little bit, he says it doesn't matter to me who I go against, Nehemiah or Darrell. He says these guys are both champions and I'm willing to die for this.
These guys are both champions, but Kylan has a record of beating champions.
Yeah, and I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny that he says I'm willing to die for this and then it's like a math elimination.
That was great.
But I don't know, I mean, I appreciate his how committed he is to the game, but I do think it was a little bit of an exaggeration saying that you're willing to die for this. Like
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, after the elimination or after the deliberation, we see a scene where Jordan and Naya come into Era One's room and they kind of break the news to Tina and Darrell that they're going in.
Yeah. And this is interesting because Tina and Darrell handle this in just totally different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And Darrell is about what you would expect from Darrell. He's like the most chill guy in this entire game. And meanwhile, Tina is absolutely losing it while Michele is getting into the zone to go into elimination and beat her.
Yeah, and I think that the mentality of a Michelle and a Darrell is really beneficial and it can be more beneficial than just having stronger skill sets in different things because if you're not there mentally, you can't focus and concentrate on something like that. So, I think that it shows how like the level of competitors that a Darrell and that a Michelle are in, that when they know that they're going in, they're mentally preparing themselves to be in a good space to be there instead of just blowing up and freaking out at everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, we see that Bananas and Ryan have a little spat. What did you think about that?
That's was funny just because I mean it's Bananas in the Bananas element. At this point, if I'm Ryan, the way I'm handling that is just walking out of the room. I mean, Bananas will. It doesn't matter if it's here if it's the traders, which he lasted on for like what 20 minutes. Um, if it's House of Villains, Bananas is just the king of causing arguments and drama in reality show houses where he can actually convince people that there's some sort of reasoning behind it, unlike, say, someone like Amanda, who you know is just going to do that just to do it.
Yeah.
But in Banana's case, it's like we see him now fighting with Ryan just to create tension within Era 2. Last week, he was making stuff up about Devin just to create tension between him and Michele. Um, that's what Johnny does, and it's why he's still doing this show after what, like 20 seasons or something.
Yeah, I do want to give props to Johnny just because he knows what the producers want to see. He knows how to make good TV.
Yeah,
And yes, it can feel not very genuine if you kind of know like he's just doing that so he gets screen time. But you do have to give him credit because the things that he does create, like the situation that he does get mad about, are a lot different than what Amanda says. Amanda's saying, Tori, I will never be your friend. All your
yeah,
friends are fake or whatever. But Bananas is finding situations where that those reactions are appropriate and it seems more genuine than when people like somebody like Amanda who's just trying to insert herself in situations and create chaos with people that get a lot of screen time because we see Tori gets a ton of confessionals, Michele gets a ton of confessionals, and they both get a lot of screen time, and that's probably why Amanda picks them to start fights with.
exactly.
So, I don't know. Do you have any more thoughts on that?
No, I think we're ready to get into elimination.
The elimination, it was called like boxed in,
Yeah.
caged in, something like that. They contestants basically are in a box with a bunch of poles going through them, and they have to maneuver the poles to get through the cage while also solving a math equation. And we saw that uh Michele and Michele and Tina went in first. What did you think of that?
I thought this was very well done on both their parts. It was very competitive across the whole thing. I did like that they put the equation on the panels of glass facing inside, so it really took away the ability for anyone else in the game to assist whoever they may or may not have wanted to win. Although that may have been disappointing because this time we would have got Devin, who's a math expert, yelling as opposed to Jordan making Michele unable to hear like we did in Red Who Dies. Um, but I thought like I said, I thought they both did well. They both were able to play under pressure and know when it was time to go back instead of to panic. Something that I didn't necessarily expect from Tina based on her reactions in the house earlier that day. But in the end, Michele wins it, and she absolutely deserved to win this and move on. She strategically handled that elimination perfectly and got it done.
Yeah, I think you made some very good points in this because um when you allow the crowd to help or yell or do something, it kind of takes away from the elimination and from it being like two people going head to head against each other, and it takes away from the winner when you have people that are able to step in and help the person in the elimination. So I think that like you said it was it was like a nail biting elimination. Like we see Michele gets out of the box first and she puts the code in but gets it wrong, and then we see Tina come out, get it wrong, and just it was very intense, I think. And I think like you said both girls did a good job in the elimination, but at the end of the day Michele won and she did all of that by herself. So I think it's important to give credit where it's due, and I think a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving on to the men's elimination is where we, unlike the women's elimination, see a completely different strategic element take place. And I don't think that it really mattered all that much because Kylan just ran this perfectly. And what, he got it on his first attempt?
Yeah, he did, but Darrell did get out of the box much faster
Yeah,
than Kyland.
true. So we see Darrell at the combination earlier.
Hmm.
However, Darrell is, as we get a funny confessional from Rachel, not only writing his answers down in the sand, but actually taking time to smooth out the sand and have everything done perfect when he has absolutely no time to do any of that. And that allows Kylan to catch up. If Darrell was able to do it without writing, he probably would have had a good shot. That being said, that's a big if because as we saw with both Michele and Tina, it's clearly not something that's easy, and Kylan had to be very mathematically skilled in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think I like you said, I think Kylan played it out perfectly, but I honestly still feel very bad for Darrell just
Yeah.
because we see that he is an elite competitor. Even though he hasn't made a
Mm-hmm.
final on the flagship, we saw him, he got second on All Stars in the last in the one of the finals that he did. But I don't know, it's like it's hard for me, not hard, but it's kind of upsetting to see that somebody like Darrell, who owns a gym, who is very physically fit and very, very capable of being a physical threat in this challenge, just kind of get unlucky with eliminations. I feel
Yeah.
like when he goes in, like if we had Darrell against a Kylan in a pole wrestle, Darrell's gonna wipe the floor with him.
Right.
Like we saw Darrell beat Zach in that. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't know, I just kind of feel bad for him because I know how much he loves the game and how much he wants to be there and how he
Agreed.
trains so hard for it. But I think it's important to give Darrell his flowers just because he is a very physically fit competitor. And even though he hasn't been able to run a final on the flagship, he's still very capable of giving a lot of those people a run for their money. But yeah, I mean, I felt bad for him because after he was like, I think it was 15, was it 15/20 divided by two, the last part of the equation? And
Yeah.
that's what he was trying to smooth out, and he was like, "I'm such an idiot, like, how could I not, like, figure it out?" And, I mean, at least, like, for me, because I am somebody who's very good at mental math, when
Mm.
I was watching it and I got the equation done in, like, I don't know, like, 20 seconds or something
Nice.
like that, but when they showed it all on the screen. But I don't know, I feel like when you're in have that much pressure, he probably sees Kylan still in the box. He's like, "Oh, I got time, like, I wanna make sure I do this right," instead
Exactly.
of just get like, type oh, sorry, I thought my nose was bleeding for a second. No.
Oh no.
You see, it kinda looks like it is a
Yeah.
little bit. Um, but we saw that Darrell was just he wasn't locked in like Kylan was, and even though
Right.
Kylan was not as fast as him, Kylan is very methodical about the way that he does things.
Yeah.
So that's why
Exactly.
he's able to win.
All right. So moving on, I thought, well, maybe I guess because I was trying to think how Bruce and I did this, I kind of explained it badly last time. Because Bruce and I do two different things, so I might have mixed it up. But I thought we would start this off. We'll still keep the player who's the most like who we think is in the worst spot in our kind of rankings, but instead where I'm kind of getting the thought that we might be going with the same players every week if they're in an alliance. Otherwise, I thought we'd do what Bruce and I also do and say who our player of the episode is at the end.
I think that's a great idea. We can do like the player of the episode and the worst player of the episode, I guess you can
Yeah,
call it. Um, I'm gonna say that the player of this episode for me was Michele
yeah,
because we saw how fast she got that puzzle done. We saw how even though she knew she was like she was freaking out during the challenge and she said something like I'm when she was talking to Tina, she was like, "I'm calm right now, but it's because if I wasn't, then I would be spiraling." So we
right.
see also a lot of like growth that she's had because a lot of times or on other seasons when she's been going into elimination, it's hard to not freak out and like make a big reaction or just be very overwhelmed with that choice. But we saw she knew she was going in and she mentally prepared herself to go in there and she won that elimination. So I would have to say she's my
I'm
player
going
of
to
the episode.
completely agree with you there for all of that. I mean, you said it perfectly, but yeah, Michele absolutely winning the elimination, having that family scene was such a big part of this episode. And her relationship with Devin was a big part of this episode. She was everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it was just the Devin, the family, puzzle, elimination,
And
and everything.
and going into tonight's episode, who do you think is in the worst position in the game?
So I wrote down, I'll say the targets because then that gives us a
Oh
good
yeah, please do.
spot.
My
So
bad. I
no,
missed
you're
that.
fine. Rachel and Derek for era one,
Yeah.
Kara and
Rachel by
Derek.
default and Derek by default now.
Yes,
So even
Kara.
if they
Sorry.
win, they'll probably still be targets.
Well, they'll have to be
Yeah.
targets unless the
Unless there's
game
a mid-season
changes.
twist.
But yeah, Rachel, Derek, Kara, and Derek C.
Yeah.
And then we saw that Kylan said he was closer to Laurel, and Michele says that she has a relationship with Bananas and also with Ryan, which I think shows a lot about how even though her and Bananas were kind of in an awkward spot, she's still not going to say his name because
Yeah.
they do have a relationship outside the show.
Though I
But
think that might have changed with how her and Derek have become a lot closer during and after this season.
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, we don't know how like what it would be after the season, but I'm excited for the reunion
Yeah.
to see how where their or and even later on this season where their friendship kind of stands
I
in the
know Ryan
game.
said on his Ask Me Anything that the reunion's coming up at some point in the next few weeks. So
That's exciting.
yeah.
Um and then era 3, Michele isn't going to pick Devin, so
Yeah.
she picks Corey and Kylan picks Avery. This is pretty expected. And then
Within
Theo
their own eras.
yeah. Um, Theo volunteers, which I appreciated seeing that. And then we see Jenny. Kylan just says, I'm not close with you.
Which I mean, to his credit, Kyland is a Big Brother player, so he's probably not going to throw Casey, and he's at least it seems that the divisions that happened before between the kind of Michele Olivia J group in 39 and the Kyland Luis Horacio group have kind of mended by now. So he only has one choice, but I'm sure we're going to open the episode with a pissed off Jenny again.
Yeah, and I do want to, I think I saw, I don't know, I think it was on Twitter, but I saw Kylan talking about how somebody had asked him like, why are you protecting Olivia after everything that happened on 39 and blah blah blah. And he said that before the season, Michele and Olivia kind of approached him, Horacio and Nerys, and said like, we're gonna prove it to you that like we're not gonna screw you over again, like we're
Nice.
here to work with you and we're gonna show you it. Obviously we see Horacio and Nerys are out.
Yeah.
So and then Kylan said that the beginning of the season when they were there, they were being very faithful, and then they both doubled down on it once those two left.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to note that Era 4, aside from Jenny, maybe Josh a little bit, are in a very good alliance
And
together.
thanks to Olivia, Theo is part of the Americans. So sorry, Jenny.
Yeah. But so out of those people, who do I think is in the worst spot? I'm gonna have to go with Derek
Yeah.
Kaczynski just because we don't know where his injury stands. And even
And
in the
even if he's
challenge.
going to stay, we haven't seen him go be a target yet. And
Mm-hmm.
odds are, unless him
No,
and
he
Rachel
he went
can.
in. He went into elimination
No,
twice.
oh, I know. I mean, past his when he was hurt.
Oh, yeah.
So we haven't seen that tested. And odds are one's going in again because that's what always happens. So
Yeah, and even in the daily we saw him like limping around, jumping on
yeah.
one leg. I feel so bad for the guy
Oh, so
and
do I.
I hope that his injury is able to heal. And that there would be, I'm not saying that he's not gonna, or I'm not saying he's gonna go home, but I think at this point, he's the easiest person to throw into elimination
Yeah.
because if you have, unless you're sitting or standing, the whole time, he's gonna be at a disadvantage. But I hope that
Watch
in the
them throw him
future,
in, and it's the elimination, something along the lines of like what Kara and Rachel got last year when it takes
no skill,
no
just
physical skill at all, just random
randomness.
chance, and he like knocks out Jordan tonight.
I mean, anything could, well, I guess it wouldn't be Jordan, it would be
Well, yeah,
Tori. But
true.
um yeah, I think I just want to say hopefully in the future we get to see him fully healed from everything on
Yeah,
a season where he can continue what he started at the beginning of the season, beating Mark and beating Audacio in
absolutely.
eliminations. Do you have, is that who you want
Yeah,
to?
that's my pick as well. I don't think there's any one you can say other than Derek that is just has that unfortunate disadvantage and therefore makes him the easiest target to try to throw in because odds are he's not going to win and therefore not going to come back and try to get rid of you.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I don't have anything else, or unless you want to
No,
talk about anything.
that's great. I'll put this online as soon as it downloads. So you look out for it probably within half an hour. But that is perfect. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys on Sunday for our next episode in real time.
Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on Sunday.